Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Thanks for logging on to my latest forecast update. Hey, it's been rain-free on a Saturday here. It's July 11th, 2015. Boy, it's kind of nice to see that. Don't expect it to last long, though. Plenty more rain there in the forecast. In fact, severe thunderstorm watch issued out here to our immediate west. That doesn't look like it's going to be a big threat to us. You can see this line is sort of fading pretty fast as it heads toward us. Now, that could give us some scattered shower or maybe some thunderstorm chances overnight, but I don't expect it to be anything very big here. It's prompted up quite a few thunderstorm warnings as it's moved through Illinois, but by and large, most of it has dissipated here by the time we're now 5:30 Eastern time here as I'm recording this video. So if you have evening plans out tonight on your Saturday evening, nothing to worry about. It'll probably be after 9 o'clock before we start to see any significant chance of shower and thunderstorm activity here in the area overnight. It's not a huge chance by any means, but a few storms are most certainly possible. Now, let's go ahead and talk then about what we can expect coming up. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we all three of those days have the chances of some severe weather. So let's sort of talk about that just a little bit. Slight risk of severe weather here for Sunday. Now, Sunday looks not a great chance for severe weather. We're in the slight risk zone, but not a huge thing to worry about. An isolated stronger storm or two, but it's not something that I would be too overly concerned about. Tuesday is the bigger chance for us. In fact, or excuse me, Monday. Monday is the bigger chance for us, and that'll be the best day. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center here has already issued an enhanced risk for severe weather on Monday. If you take a look at that, to the probabilities, you can see it equates to a 30%. If you're wondering what the enhanced risk is, I know I've covered this before, but if you haven't watched my videos, you might not have seen it. An enhanced risk is last year they didn't have an enhanced risk category. We just called it an upper end slight risk. It was all slight risk, and you had to. It was all this just would have been a slight risk. The enhanced wouldn't have been there, and you hovered over the probabilities, and you'd have seen that red 30% hatch from there. Well, the red 30% hatch has now got its own category. Instead of us just saying it's an upper end probability on the slight risk, they called it enhanced risk. That's all it is. Nothing new. It's just a little bit of a change in the name. But in upper end, slight risk here, an enhanced risk for severe weather on Monday. Notice the hatches here. Well, the hatches is where they say where the Storm Prediction Center believes the most significant chance for severe weather would exist. Well, what do they define as significant severe weather? Well, the Storm Prediction Center defines significant severe thunderstorms as any storm that produces one or more of the following: a tornado that produces EF2 or greater damage, wind speeds of 75 miles per hour or greater, or hail 2 inches in diameter or larger. And you can see that extends right over us. Yay, us, right? Whenever you see these hatches, that's not what you want to see over you. That's some very significant severe weather possible for you. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on. And then, of course, as that moves off to the east, the system then, by the time Tuesday comes, we're still in a slight risk for severe weather, that 15% probability for Tuesday, but it looks like it's going to be diminishing pretty fast. In fact, by Tuesday, it looks like it'll be a lot more isolated than what we see on Sunday and Monday by this point. Well, let's dive into the details and talk about what's going on. Well, what we've got going on, notice right down here, we have this big upper level ridge of high pressure. In fact, let me just sort of put this into motion for you. What you see, we sometimes call this the ring of fire pattern. You've heard me talk about that before. Basically, this is an upper level high pressure sitting at about 18,000 feet up into the air. That's what your 500 millibar level is. Winds are flowing clockwise around this, so you've got that northwest flow going on. What you have around this is down here, you would find very little, if any, storms going on. It's high pressure, it's hot, it's humid, and it's just steamy and scorchy down there. But around the periphery of that, we have the ring of fire. That's where the thunderstorms like to fire. And because of a dip in the jet stream that's coming along with this, and some impulses that'll be coming down with it, that's where the storm zones are going to be. We're kind of in the perfect location over the next few days for storm zones being with this. In fact, as I put this into motion, you can see there that ring of fire pattern just really continues on as far as the eye can see. That ridge just sort of sits back down there until later on in the period we finally start to have a little dip, but that could end up causing a little bit more storm activity for us. But the ring of fire is still there down there. So bottom line, the takeaway from that is it's going to be a rainy couple of weeks coming up for us again. And of course, it's not what we want to hear. We've already had a bunch of rain, but more of it is on the way. Let's go ahead and try to time it out on Future Radar. Now let me preface this to give you an idea of this. Future Radar has been sucky the past few days, just flat out honest with you. Really the past couple of months in this pattern that we've been in, Future Radar has just been pathetic for us. At least the high-res NAM has. That's the only one we've really got that's worth the crap right now going through this. So We'll see what it shows you, but take it with a grain of salt. We go through the evening, and maybe overnight we start to see some rain or some storm activity move through, but nothing too big and bad overnight. By the time you hit your Sunday going on here, you got a couple of storms that want to try to fire up later in the afternoon, but I'm going with a 40% chance at best for this. It's not going to be a huge risk by any means on Sunday. As you go into Monday, the risk starts to increase, though. There you've got some early morning convection running through, gone by the afternoon hours, and then by the evening hours, later afternoon, the evening. What you notice here is these almost looks like supercells starting to pop up in the area, and of course that is absolutely what we don't want to see, because that would be the strongest risk for severe weather, would be with those supercells. So that's something that we will certainly keep an eye on. The parameters there, and I will say this, the parameters there most certainly in place. Remember, you've got to have some sort of a lifting mechanism to fire the storms. That's going to be in place through sort of a stalled frontal boundary and some upper level impulses that are coming through. No problem with that. But you also need some instability and wind energy. Let's look at that instability. Very, very good. In fact, just extremely explosive extremely explosive fuel for these storms. So no problem with that all on Monday. Talk about your wind energy, though. What we're looking at here is winds at about 18,000 feet up in the air. And remember, somewhere between the surface here and about 18,000 feet up in the air, you need to have winds over 35 knots to get organized severe weather. And well, your 35 knots start in your second blue shading. Really, your first blue shading here is pretty marginal. But what you notice is as it's coming over us, we've certainly got the wind energy in our area. You've got a little what we call a vort max coming off of it. Here's your upper level, your ridge of high pressure. There's your ring of fire pattern. And then there's your strong wind energy following that, and it's right over our area. In fact, if we there's another other couple of things that we could look at to make it concern to would be some spin in the atmosphere along with that wind. So what this product is it's looking to 0 to 6 kilometer energy helicity index, and this is a measure of spin in the atmosphere. And well, once you get over 1 or 2, you can have tornado development coming, and there we're at 6 plus in our area. So now that doesn't mean that tornadoes will develop off of this, but it's saying the potential is certainly there. A lot of spin going on in the atmosphere, and if we just look at the winds and how they cross over, what I've got plotted here for you, at the red, these are your surface winds, and at the blue, these are your winds 18,000 feet up in the air. Notice complete change in direction. You go from the southwest at the surface to the northwest up at 18,000 feet in the air, and notice the speed differential there as well. So you got wind directional shear and you've got wind speed shear as well. All that is to say that is very conducive for a tornadic type of threat. That is, by the way, why they've got us hatched, because that is conducive to EF2 or greater damage, or very large hail and winds of 75 miles per hour or greater. All that certainly could be in play for us on Monday. So that's something that we got to keep an eye on. This is not a guarantee by any means. Please understand that. This is not saying by any means that we will most definitely see severe weather, but the potential there is certainly in place. Is something that we'll keep an eye on. I'll try to have a little better update for you tomorrow on as far as timing and all of those things out, and certainly on Monday morning then as well. Now, as we take a look at a longer pattern here, we got a warm-up coming our way this week. That's what that ring of fire, that death ridge, the upper level high down to our southwest rather, that creates a warm pattern. So it looks like we're headed back to the low 90s. Upper 80s and low 90s look to dominate the next few days, but we do see some cool down in sight for us again. And by the way, why you see that is because we just have a very active Pacific going on. We'll talk about this in a future long-range update a little bit further, but the Pacific Basin is just absolutely cranking. You got Typhoon Chan-Ham here coming on, and you've got Typhoon Nanka. I'm terrible at pronouncing these names, so just forgive me on that. But and then yet you've got another third one here that's probably going to form into a Typhoon Halola and move out there as well. And there's several more that I didn't have pulled up here for you. But the bottom line is, you remember the typhoon rules. Basically, what's going to happen with these is once they recurve past Japan and move up, it jacks it with the jet stream. It continues to provide that dip. That could be responsible for a little bit of a cool down for us later in the month, but it could also be responsible for more rain coming our way. And of course, that's not what we want to see. But whenever we have an active Pacific like that, we understand that we're going to have an active weather pattern for us as well. What goes on out there directly affects us all year round. And so whenever you've got very active storms, by the way, the intensity of these storms also make a difference. Stronger the storm, the stronger the impact on us, typically speaking. So that's something that we'll keep an eye on. But the bottom line is with the Pacific Basin right now is the warmest it's been, and it's cooking right now. Very strong El Nino going on right now, and typically with an El Nino pattern, we get an active southern branch of the jet stream, but the storms tend to stay to our south during the summertime. During that, it's not what we're seeing going on right now. We've also got a very strongly positive PDO, Pacific Decadal Oscillation, which I haven't really talked much about, but we'll get into that in a future long-range update for you as well, rather than tonight. But bottom line, those two things are combining for a very active weather pattern for us, folks, and that I just want you to see that weather pattern doesn't look to let up anytime soon. So, yeah, we'll have a few days where we get into the 90s here, but we'll come right back down into the mid to low 80s. Bottom line is, overall, it looks like a semi-normal to slightly below or just slightly above normal. Doesn't look like any extremes going on here as far as temperature-wise. We're not going to be stuck in the 60s or 70s. We're not going to be baking into the hundreds. We're just going to be, 5 to 10 degrees on either side of normal coming up. And that's not a bad place to be at if it weren't for all the rain. And it looks like the rain will be the big thing. Doesn't look like we're going to have daily huge storm chances, but most days we'll have at least some storm chances. Well, that said, let's go ahead and take a look at your forecast. Go to southernindianaweather.com, click on your 10-day forecast. 88 for your high temperature tomorrow. Again, I've went with a 40% chance of some storm development. I might even downgrade that to 30% until late into the afternoon. It really looks like later in the afternoon would be our better chance with that. Early in the morning and overnight tonight and early in the morning. Then we probably get a break and it'll be later in the afternoon before we start to see anything. 88 for your high, though, and then by the time you get on to Monday, we'll have some sunshine in the morning, possibly, going up to around 90 for your high. That should spark off some scattered showers and thunderstorms. We'll watch for those strong to severe thunderstorms possible. It could be some very significant severe weather. It could turn out to be absolutely nothing. We'll keep an eye on it. And then, of course, very muggy lows here as well. And as far as the eye, you can see Tuesday we go down to a 40% chance after that, and that may even need to go down even further. Depends on how fast the system moves out. But we're going down to isolated chances from there before we get some sunshine returning in for next weekend the way things look right now. But we're just baking in the low 90s. Rain chances then return to the forecast after that. So, bottom line, sorry folks, I've got more rain in here than what I do sun, unfortunately, and that's just going to be the way it is, and the pattern that we are stuck in right now. We're just very conducive to that kind of thing. Bottom line, though, keep it tuned right here to Southern Indiana Weather on Facebook. Follow me at SouthernINWX on Twitter. Keep it tuned to SouthernIndianaWeather.com as well for videos and future forecast updates as well, folks. And we'll get through this together. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite. Have a great day, folks. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.